Hello, and thank you for joining us today. The Chronicle of Philanthropy is very excited to have you. My name is Megan O'Neill. I'm a web reporter here, and I'm going to be moderating this conversation. We have a great session ahead of us in which we're going to be discussing cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin, of course, is probably the most widely known of those, and how nonprofits are incorporating them into their operations. We have a couple of great guests. And I'm going to introduce them to you momentarily, but just a few housekeeping items before we start. First off, there's a couple of ways that you can answer questions today. We've turned on the Q&A for the Hangout if you're watching this on YouTube or Google. If you're watching this on our homepage, philanthropy.com, you can also just comment in the chat box that you actually see on the page below the window screen. And if you want to review a recording of this discussion later or need to show it to your boss or something like that, it'll be immediately available on that same page, as well as on our Google Plus and our YouTube pages. Now on to our guests. We have with us today William McNulty. He is the co-founder of Team Rubicon Global, which is sort of the global or international arm of Team Rubicon, veterans-focused nonprofit. And the global operation, as I am hoping he'll explain to us, was actually born out of a cryptocurrency fundraising effort. Eric Mishk is the executive director of the nonprofit Spare Key. I think it was earlier this year he actually created the position of Director of Cryptocurrency Development there, and they've run at least one very successful cryptocurrency fundraising campaign. And then lastly, we have Elizabeth Cloche. She's actually an account manager at BitPay, which is a web platform that you may want to know about. They manage Bitcoin transactions for all sorts of businesses and nonprofits. She's in charge of outreach there to nonprofits and political organizations, and she's also a member of the board of directors of the Bitcoin Foundation and extremely knowledgeable. So we're actually going to start with Elizabeth if she's willing to indulge me. I'm hoping, Elizabeth, that you can just go ahead and define for us exactly what cryptocurrency is and what Bitcoin is, because not everyone even knows the definition.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks so much for having me on today. So a cryptocurrency is basically a way to transfer funds online, and cryptography is very secure, so it's all digital payments. So specifically Bitcoin, Bitcoin is the most predominant digital and cryptocurrency, but I would call Bitcoin a digital decentralized cryptocurrency. So digital, all online, decentralized, meaning that it's all peer-to-peer, no central point of control, no central point of failure, and then cryptocurrency based again on complex cryptography. So it's a secure payment system. Bitcoin's founder Satoshi Nakamoto termed Bitcoin as an electronic cash system. So it's kind of like e-cash or e-gold.
And do you mind explaining a little bit more where it comes from? You hear about mining of Bitcoin. Just a little bit about how that process works to just demystify it for our audience.
Yeah, so basically mining takes place when transactions are verified, and so you have a lot of different Bitcoin miners competing to verify transactions, and then they earn a reward. That's kind of the simple, definition of mining. But people used to be able to mine Bitcoin, for example, on their computers with their CPU, but now it's getting more and more complex as there's more and more competition, and now you have large mining rigs, large mining companies, and more complex and high-tech mining systems.
Terrific, thank you. William, I want to switch to you. I'm hoping you can just maybe give us a little bit of the backstory or the narrative about how your organization dipped the toe into cryptocurrencies and how it's gone so far.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, so we are always looking for ways to diversify our revenue model. And of course, we were reading the news, just as everyone was, about Bitcoin and seeing some of the negative aspects in the news. And also realizing that the Bitcoin community is actually looking for good stories as well. They're actually very generous, and they're willing to donate to these charities around the world. So we partnered with Varum, and they raised $72,000 in Bitcoin for us. And that is basically it's the seed funding for this Team Rubicon Global movement that is going to build these Team Rubicons around the world for military veterans in Australia and Canada and the Philippines, etc.
So it sounds like you had a really strong partner. I mean, who was doing most of the legwork? Were you guys doing the legwork? Was this partner doing the legwork? Was it a combination of both?
Actually, this specific that $72,000 that was raised is earmarked towards Team Rubicon Philippines, and it was really Varum who did most of the legwork for us.
Do you see this being something that you carry on into the future? You've described sort of a one-off sort of fundraising effort, but is this something that you intend to continue, and what capacity?
We do. So we are one of the very few charities, I don't know of any others out there, that actually have a Bitcoin, through BitPay actually, site set up, account set up, so that Bitcoin users can donate to Team Rubicon operations. They can dedicate that Bitcoin towards a specific operation if they want, or it can go towards our general fund.
Okay, terrific. Eric, I'm going to pose the same question to you. How did your organization come across cryptocurrency, and what sort of inspired the decision to engage with it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and thanks for having us on too. So last year, late in the year, I read all sorts of articles about Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Litecoin, a whole menu of different cryptocurrencies. And so, as Team Rubicon does, SpearKey is always looking to diversify its fundraising capacity and where we can raise funds. And this seemed to be a great opportunity to create a new giving platform for a community that typically is not likely to be automatically focused on philanthropic giving. And so we began the very quick process of putting links on our website. We actually have a number of links on our website, including a BitPay button, and have had that since January, where folks can make donations to SpearKey in any form of cryptocurrency. We have another platform that allows folks that want to use some kind of cryptocurrency other than Bitcoin to make donations to SpearKey. And so for us, the challenge was and remains, we're a small nonprofit with a big staff of 3 people operating in 4 states. And so trying to figure out the technical aspects of what cryptocurrency is and what the algorithms are, that's just way outside our bailiwick. And so we need to find platforms that allow us to have donors make donations to SpearKey and to very quickly convert that cryptocurrency into cash. You started out the question by asking what Bitcoin is and what cryptocurrency is. I can't tell you the math behind it or the science. What I can tell you is, for a nonprofit like SpearKey, all of those forms of currency translate into money, and money translates into mortgage and rental grants that we make for families that have critically ill or seriously injured kids in the hospital.
Was there a lot of explaining that had to take place with your potential donor audience, or was the intent to capture an entirely new donor audience with this? I mean, was there any fear that maybe you would be losing some people with sort of this buzzy cryptocurrency thing, or was the hope that you would just attract a new crowd maybe?
You know, we want to give people an opportunity to donate in whatever form they wish to donate. We have the capacity for people to donate with a credit card, with US dollars. And so this wasn't to try to convince existing donors to change their giving model or the medium in which they give. It was to really reach out to an entirely new community that was involved in cryptocurrency and ask them to participate in giving, and being able to give them the portal and the platform to be able to do that easily and conveniently and efficiently. So what we're looking at is, I mean, I'd love to be able to raise $70,000, and I think Team Rubicon's done a great job. We've been able to raise a little over $10,000 with various different forms of cryptocurrency, from Bitcoin to Dogecoin to Litecoin. And so we're going to continue to try to build that platform and really rely on the industry leaders like BitPay and others who've been out there providing that platform for charities like SpearKey to accept this currency.
How much bandwidth did it take to actually get this up off the ground? I mean, you mentioned modest staff operating in 4 states. I mean, did you end up having to dedicate an exorbitant amount of time to get this going, or what was sort of the legwork like?
Yeah. So you had mentioned early on that one of the things we did is we hired somebody called the Director of Cryptocurrency Development. This is a guy who's about a quarter my age, who understands all the bells and whistles and the technology. And so he kind of did that legwork to figure out which were going to be the best platforms for us to use. But in terms of bandwidth, in order to take advantage of cryptocurrency in terms of accepting it, this isn't rocket science. Understanding all the algorithms and the math and doing the mining, that is just not something that we're going to venture into. That's not what we're all about. So it really has not been that difficult. What I find the biggest barrier to entry for nonprofits taking advantage of cryptocurrency is this notion that somehow or another you have to be a technology expert in order to engage. Nothing could be further from the truth. I'm about as technical as my 82-year-old mother. And I got to tell you, as long as I can figure out how to put a link on my website, I can accept cryptocurrency.
Okay, cool. Elizabeth, I'm going to turn to you again. What sorts of organizations are maybe best suited for cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin? I mean, is there a specific type of organization that should be looking into this, or I mean, are there some that
all
should
organizations. Yeah, all organizations. I mean, honestly, Bitcoin is such an asset to for-profits and nonprofits. Just looking at the basics of cryptocurrencies, in particular Bitcoin, what Bitcoin does is it removes the middleman, so there's transparency in transactions and direct transactions. All transactions are also recorded on an open public ledger, so you can see where funds are going for accounting purposes. Then on top of that, the most important thing is that Bitcoin alleviates these hefty transaction fees. So BitPay actually just transitioned to a model for for-profits and nonprofits to a 0% transaction fee and the ability to cash out 100% for fiat. So a 0% transaction fee, I mean, how did that even compare to 3 to 4% transaction fees for credit cards, up to 6% for PayPal? I mean, it's unbelievable. So specifically for charities and nonprofits, this is huge because when someone donates with Bitcoin, they're going to know that the charity and nonprofit is going to get 100% of that donation. And in addition to that, if they're using a platform like BitPay, they can either cash out for a certain percentage in fiat or even hold on to some of the Bitcoin donations. And just another element of that too is the security factor of sending in a donation with Bitcoin, and that it's an outbound payment system. So someone who's donating never has the risk of identity theft, and on top of that, there isn't even a risk of chargeback. So for me, I mean, certainly I'm biased being on the Bitcoin Foundation Board of Directors and working for BitPay. I still see it's a no-brainer for any company to accept payment or donations in Bitcoin, and in particular, you know, these nonprofits and charities that are having a huge impact have, you know, these costs that they don't want to incur should be accepting donations in Bitcoin so that they can benefit and have more to give back.
What sorts of resources or support could a nonprofit organization that's interested perhaps in working with BitPay expect? I mean, what do they do? Like after this conversation is over, do they get on the phone and call you guys, and what can you offer them?
Absolutely. Well, it's so easy to do. And again, just to preface, I'm not very tech savvy, but I'm able to figure the system out. So basically all someone would have to do, first of all, I mean, I can provide my contact information. It's elizabeth@bitpay.com, elizabeth@bitpay.com. So you can send me an email. I can get you more information. But also there's just web resources online, bitpay.com. And what you do is you sign up for a BitPay merchant account. It takes less than 5 minutes to do so. Then you receive your account credentials, you log in, and you can customize your whole merchant account. You can customize your payout settings. Then we have several plugins. So if you want to have a WordPress plugin, we have a PHP staff. We also have a RESTful API that can be integrated with pretty much any type of site and tons of different languages. And then on top of that, we have different customizable donation pages as well. So tons of different options. Our goal with BitPay in particular is to keep things open source, peer-to-peer, developer-friendly, also organizational-friendly. So turnkey approaches, but then also an opportunity for an organization to customize with our API.
Okay, so we have a couple of audience questions here, and I'm going to address these both to William and Eric, so if either of you feel free to pop in. One of them is, my question is, how are the Bitcoin, or we're going to change that, how are the cryptocurrencies being collected? Are they being collected via website, in person, or both? So William, do you want to answer that question for our audience?
Sure. So we have a BitPay account, and we have it linked to bitcoin.teamrubiconusa.org. You can go there and donate the Bitcoin that you have to Team Rubicon, and then we immediately cash it out because we're not in the business of holding Bitcoin. we immediately convert it into cash.
Okay, so in your case, it's website. It's all via the internet, an internet platform. Okay.
Yes.
And Eric, what about with you guys? Is it website, in person, or both? Because you do hear about these like Bitcoin party events where there's like a kiosk and you can sort of do it in person, which is interesting.
Yeah, so we try to give folks any number of different options. So if you go to our website, sparekey.org/donate, you can pick a button. You can donate in Bitcoin. We also give people the opportunity that if they come to an event of ours and they want to pay with Bitcoin, we can set up that system using a wallet on our PDA. We have an annual gala called the Groove, and this year the Groove Gala allowed people who bid on silent and live auctions to pay for those items using Bitcoin, and to be able to do that online or with their wallet. So the key here, I think, for nonprofits is just like we try to give people who want to use kind of traditional methods of donating multiple different platforms, you really have to do the same thing with cryptocurrency, because while BitPay is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I can tell you there's a lot of people out there that are using all sorts of different currencies that want to find ways to provide support to nonprofits. My job is to make that easy for them and to do it in a way that doesn't take up a lot of bandwidth and resources on the budget of a small nonprofit like SpareKey.
Okay, William, I want to ask you, how did you go about communicating with colleagues, or I don't know if you had to sort of pitch this or sell this to a boss, right? It's very sort of buzzy and hip, and maybe the average person under 40 isn't all that interested. So how do you sort of cut through the buzz and present it in a way that's compelling and convincing? Do you go in with a couple of successful case studies, or what did you do?
Well, at the end of the day, it came down to, hey, guys, I can convert this into cold hard cash, right? This is money that we can use to fund our operations. But there was, in the beginning, there were actually a couple of my employees who thought, isn't that for trading for drugs and
right.
guns and illegal activity and things like that? And I said, guys, this is currency. People use dollars for illegal activity too. Yeah. But this is currency. This is currency that we can use to fund our operations. So it did take a little bit of time to convince people that this was the right thing to do. And once the Bitcoin started being donated through Team Rubicon, people really saw, wow, this is real.
Okay, and Eric, same question to you. I mean, I don't know if you had maybe a more traditional donor base or people who maybe might be turned off by it, or colleagues who just weren't that interested. How did you sell this?
Yeah, I mean, and as William said, I mean, there's a lot of misperceptions out there about cryptocurrency, and I did an interview with a major U.S. newspaper, and the first question from the reporter was, well, isn't this being used for drug dealing and nefarious purposes? And my comment was, and U.S. dollars aren't. The reality is that it is currency. It's a different form of currency. And, people do bad things all the time. My hope is that people will do more good things with cryptocurrency, just like they do more good things with U.S. dollars. So I had some board members who wanted to learn more about it, and so we spent a little bit of time talking to those board members that had any kind of concerns. The key to the kingdom here, I will tell you for SpareKey, because what we do is we make mortgage and rental grants to families that have critically ill or seriously injured kids in the hospital. So we make those mortgage payments and those rental payments directly to the mortgage company, directly to a landlord. The key to the kingdom is that if I can accept cryptocurrency and then make those mortgage or rental payments directly to those mortgage lenders or those landlords in that same form of currency, we will have opened up a spigot that is pretty significant. So as we look at our next kind of next iteration, if you will, the next evolution of where SpareKey goes, in addition to accepting the currency, we want to find a way to further eliminate the middleman and make those payments directly to those lenders and those landlords in the same form of currency in which we received it.
Okay, great. So Elizabeth, there's been mention here of sort of the nefarious side of Bitcoin, whether it's real or not. And there's a couple of parts to that. So I have one audience member question that says, is there a risk in the value fluctuations of these types of currencies, and how should nonprofits account for that as they're considering this?
Right. Well, the thing is, that's why we have a service like BitPay. BitPay incurs fully the volatility of the currency. So when the price of Bitcoin fluctuates, BitPay incurs that volatility and provides an option, again, 0% transaction fee, zero fee at all, for a nonprofit, charity, even a for-profit company to cash out 100% for fiat currency. So how it works is once you create your BitPay merchant account, you can go onto your merchant dashboard, put in your bank account information, and you also have your Bitcoin wallet. And so any donation you receive, you can decide now what percentage of that do you want to go into a Bitcoin wallet and what percentage do you want to go into fiat currency. Another thing about BitPay is that the price is locked in at the time of transaction. So we always also denominate in USD. So what I would say is I want to donate $50 to Team Rubicon. I donate $50 on the spot in Bitcoin, but Team Rubicon, if they're cashing out 100% for US dollars in their payout settings, they'd get that $50. So not only is a nonprofit not going to have to worry about the volatility, but again, they get 100% of the donation that is donated. Whereas with any other payment provider, you know, they take out 2 to 3% in transaction fees. So again, no volatility, especially if you're working through a payment processor. And another option, if you're holding on to some of the coins, there's a potential for great gain. So if someone's donating part of a Bitcoin, it's like giving a seed to a nonprofit.
Go ahead.
Yes. So we spent a lot of time talking about the great part of cryptocurrency, and I think it's important from the nonprofit perspective to also kind of articulate what some of the potential risks are.
Sure.
So Spare Key doesn't engage in any transaction beyond making mortgage or rental payments. So we're not selling commodities, we're not buying inventory, and putting money out there. And so if you're looking at the fluctuation capacity of cryptocurrency, it's huge with any number of these different currencies. And so I would advise nonprofits that are involved in anything where they want to use cryptocurrency so people can purchase commodities or inventory to be very careful about which platform they're using, because if you can't cash out immediately, I mean, if you buy a t-shirt as a nonprofit for $5 and you hope to sell that for $20, somebody makes a donation to you in a cryptocurrency in the morning, that cryptocurrency may be worth the value of that t-shirt at that time, but 2 hours later it may be worth less than half of that. So there are some risks there that are certainly worth talking about and make sure that you explore. And a lot of it has to do who's your payment provider and how quickly can they convert those cryptocurrencies into US dollars.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you have a response to what he said?
Well, again, just to note, too, that the price is locked in at the time. So, you know, if you are making a donation and you're working through a nonprofit that is integrated with BitPay, it's locked in at the time, and that's just the security factor. But again, you know, overall I encourage, you know, those listening in just to consider this as another option to bring in revenue, another option to bring in donations. It's kind of like nothing ventured, nothing gained, because again, it's also very individual and peer-to-peer oriented, right? It's like your decision if you want to incur any volatility or incur great gain, and that's the great thing about, you know, how the idea of Bitcoin has fostered more community development, individual decision-making processes, more power for the nonprofits to make financial decisions and to have that value proposition, which you simply just don't have with fiat currency. We lose money in our sleep with the US dollar inflating. Bitcoin's price fluctuates, but if Bitcoin does succeed, we will actually have greater gain with the currency. So this is just food for thought to think about, but again, another payment option, another donation option, zero risk, zero volatility if you're working through a payment processor like BitPay.
So I have another audience question, and we don't have an accountant here with us, but I'm hoping, Elizabeth, you'll be able to handle this. The question is, would a Bitcoin donation to a U.S. nonprofit have the same tax benefits as a traditional donation, and how do you calculate the value?
Yeah, so basically with a system like BitPay, again, we provide an ability for nonprofits and charities to collect all of the information from a taxpayer and then have all that information in a downloadable CSV file. So, you know, the IRS has put out statements about Bitcoin being treated like a commodity, but again, if you're denominating in fiat currency, it's just like collecting the value at the time of the donation. And again, you can collect all the donors' information, and however a nonprofit or charity deals with that when providing tax refund purposes, you know, you could do the same if you're handling cryptocurrency or Bitcoin. So all that information is available as well. And again, it's up to the nonprofit to decide what they want to collect from the donor and their customizable donation page.
Yeah. Eric or William, do you know the identities of your Bitcoin or your cryptocurrency donors? I mean, do you typically, when a donor donates, you gather certain donor information about them, right? And sometimes that information is valuable, sometimes it's not. What's sort of is there anonymity when it comes to these types of donations? Do you know who these people are? Do you need to know? Do you care?
Eric, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer is the only way we know is that they tell us.
Okay.
And so
do they tell you?
Some do. Most don't. I mean, you know, keep in mind is that, you know, again, this is an early stage adopting currency across platforms, and while Bitcoin is clearly the more mature of the ones that are out there, the reality is a lot of people who engage in the use of cryptocurrency do so for any number of reasons, and anonymity certainly has to be one of them. You know, for our purposes, you know, particularly as it relates to taxes, you know, if you want to get a tax benefit from donating cryptocurrency, you got to tell us who you are so we can send you a letter, right?
Right.
At this point, you know, that's really kind of the donor decision as to whether they're going to do that. You know, my hope is as these models continue to evolve and mature, is more and more people using cryptocurrency are going to want to donate in very much the same way as people who donate with a credit card or cash, which is they want to make sure that that transaction gives them an opportunity to benefit through the tax code or you know, some type of recognition. But right now, I would tell you that 99.9% of the people that donate to us in cryptocurrency, that's an anonymous transaction.
Okay.
And that's the same
for
thing.
you, is it also anonymous? And I mean, is that problematic when it comes to long-term sort of sustainable fundraising?
So it's not problematic, but they do tell us through Twitter or maybe another social media page that they've donated some Bitcoin. You know, we respond to natural disasters at home and around the world, and now they're doing medical triage or debris clearing after tornadoes, earthquakes, typhoons, etc. And so we have not found, I can't think of one Bitcoin donation that we've received that someone has actually wanted a tax receipt for it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think you also asked the question, do we care? In the short term, we don't care. In the longer term, in terms of building the capacity for sustainable giving with cryptocurrency, I do think knowing who those donors are is important, not because we need to know their name and their address and their blockchains and things like that, but you know, it takes a lot of effort to go out and market to anonymous people.
Right, exactly. You don't have the traditional donor information that most nonprofits gather.
Right, and so
but we do know that they want to respond and donate to people who are suffering from natural disasters on our end. So we do know that it's a generous community.
No, and there's no question it is an extraordinarily generous community. The challenge, though, I think, for nonprofits is, I think the difference between Team Rubicon and Spare Key is pretty marked. Is they're dealing with kind of immediate disaster-based types of situations, and people's predilection is to act immediately in situations like that and to make donations. If you're looking at a situation where there's a longer-term program need like what we provide, that becomes a greater challenge because I can't invent a crisis, right? I mean, that just I can't do that to kind of spur donor giving. Okay, that's not a criticism or critique. That's just the reality. So we have to come up with different creative models to try to engage donors. And again, when you're engaging people that you don't know who they are, that's a resource question. That's a challenge.
So we only have about 2 minutes left here, and I think the way I'm going to wrap this up is I'm going to ask each of my guests to maybe in about 30 seconds or 45 seconds sort of sum up what they see happening with cryptocurrency in the next 2 to 3 years, either specifically at their own individual organization or maybe at the intersection of nonprofits more generally. So, William, I'd like to start with you. What do you see sort of in the pipeline here, maybe 2 or 3 years out, when it comes to the use of cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin?
Well, I'll answer that in the vein of Team Rubicon and how we're going to use it, because we are building out this global organization of military veterans around the world. It's the first international military veteran service organization centered around continued service. So the story of this borderless global cryptocurrency and Team Rubicon Global fits really well. So we're going to be doing a campaign around that, and we hope to see the Bitcoin community responding to that. And I think that we're going to see, Eric and I are going to see a lot more NGOs in the near future signing up for BitPay accounts and accepting these cryptocurrencies, because they're going to listen to us and say and realize that this is real money at the end of the day, and this can fund our operations and programs.
Okay, terrific. And Eric, what do
Yeah,
you?
I mean, cryptocurrency is here to stay. I think 3 to 5 years from now, I think the conversation is not going to be about what is Bitcoin, what is Dogecoin, and what is Litecoin. I think the conversation is going to be, hey, how can I donate? How can I contribute with these kind of currencies? For Spare Key, our hope is to continue to expand this platform to ultimately be in a position where we can budget into our budget cryptocurrency in the very same way that we would US dollars. I think this platform democratizes philanthropic giving. I think it allows people on the low end of the income scale as well as the high end to be just as involved as anybody else in terms of giving and donating. For those people who are members of the unbanked community, this gives unlimited capacity for them to participate in a currency and an economy which right now, today, they may not be able to. So we're very bullish on it. We think it's a brave new world. We're thrilled to be a part of it.
Thank you. And Elizabeth, what do you see on the horizon here?
Absolutely. Digital currencies are the way of the future. Never before have we seen a currency where we can reach people around the world with it, where we can bridge the gap and help the 3.5 billion people around the world who don't have access to bank accounts, and where we can have a 0% transaction fee and allow organizations, nonprofits, and charities who are focused on giving back to have all 100% of the donations. And again, just to be able to send a payment in times of disaster and need overseas instantaneously to help those in need and who need those funds most. So I say there's no turning back. Why would we turn back from a technology that is literally changing the world?
Excellent. Well, we are definitely out of time. We're a little bit over time, actually, so I'm going to have to wrap it up there. But again, if you'd like to review this session or share it with a colleague, it'll be immediately available on our Google Plus and YouTube pages, as well as on philanthropy.com. You might also be interested in one of our monthly premium webinar series. Our next one is on August 14th. It's actually about corporate grant making, so how you can get your hands on some of Walmart's millions of dollars. And you can register for those at philanthropy.com/webinars. Again, thank you to our guests. It was a pleasure to have you, and I hope that you all have a good day.
Thank you as well.